What is Price and Ramey? We've been in business since 1914, and when you think about the amount of time that has passed, the city of Kingsport, which is our central office, was not incorporated until 1917. And so you think about how long that was ago in history, and we have grown with our area and amassed a lot of different kinds of experiences.
What Price Ramey means to me is stability. When you think of a business that's been around since 1914, that's withstood World War I, the Great Depression, the stock market crash, World War II, and countless other things, both good and bad, we've been there for our clients, for our community. Yeah, so Janelle, she's our history teacher. Anything we want to know about the history of Price and Ramey, that's who we always go to.
My name is Janelle Craddock. I worked at Price and Ramey for 51 years, primarily in personal insurance. From the beginning, there were people that you liked, and you were with them all day long. And the people at Price and Ramey at that time were Joyce Sells. She was the office manager. Joe Wimberly was the primary owner, and he was more involved than the others. His brother John was here, but not here. And then another partner was Hayden Haddabass, who was a retiree from Eastman. Oh, and then two of us that did rating out of an old book, rather than the technology that we have today. And they were big books.
It went through several sort of mergers, acquisitions throughout the decades, but in 1950, Price Ramey was actually incorporated as its own corporation. Around that era is when Joe Wimberly came on board.
He was a fine gentleman. He got along with everyone. He was supportive of the community. For example, when he'd go on vacation, he would usually find a waiter or waitress that looked like they needed college, and after that he would send them money on a monthly basis to help supplement their income. So he was a very generous man, very kind and caring. This is the old building at Price and Ramey, and it was kind of unique. In this picture, Joe had brought the animals, Christmas decorations, the Santa and everything, and that's one of the things we always did was decorate the building so that it was festive for whatever the holiday might be. One of the interesting things about that building was the stairs that were suspended, and lots of people would come in to look at that just because of the architecture of the building. It was a very interesting downtown because the Downtown Kingsport Association was a pet project of Joe's, and he was very interested in seeing the downtown grow and develop. The Fun Fest had a lot of activities that were based downtown. So, our office was always decorated. We were a bead station. So that was very interesting to see the excitement of kids and adults as they came in to pick up their bead. Joe was on the board of First Tennessee Bank, served on several boards in the community. He's a great supporter of Children's Home. In fact, each year he would take several of us down to have a Christmas party for the kids there. Joe was very interested in flowers. So he was the one that promoted flower boxes and flowers at the different businesses downtown. Regretfully, the flower that he had seen in Europe was the geranium. He loved that, but it didn't work downtown because the flower was not as hardy as it needed to be. But at least he got everybody excited, and there was a little bit of color downtown that there had not been before. One thing that always amused Joe, he said before we got computers, we had the old-timey typewriters. And he said, I hugged my typewriter and wouldn't let it go before the computers were installed. But, it was change, and that's good.
Joe was such an incredible guy, and he was a big part of the legacy that we have today because he was a mentor to my dad in a lot of ways.
Having been here 22 years, I was fortunate enough to know Joe Wimberly very well, and he and his brother John, they were staples within the community, and then that transitioned over in Keith Sims, who was just a mentor and a dear, dear friend.
I always wanted to work for Keith. I've worked at 4 agencies. I've been in insurance 48 years, and Keith was always the one that I felt like would be a great mentor to me. And he was. But he was one of the strongest business minds that I have ever met. He never forgot anything. He could rattle off these numbers from his mind. It was just amazing.
Keith was very exciting, and he was the one that I think kind of jump-started the company. He was very forward-thinking, very progressive. So Keith brought in the ideas for expansion and for technology changes and so forth that the company really needed.
Keith brought me in 2013 and kind of pulled me aside, and Keith was my mentor. We talked day in and day out. He taught me everything in the role that I was in then, and I had a lot of respect for him as an agent. I had a lot of respect for what he's done in the community and just the way that the community saw Keith. It wasn't the insurance guy, it was someone that was here for the community, in the community.
Keith was a great musician. He could have been a professional. He and his sister were very talented, and sometimes we'd get him to play and her to sing.
Dad was a really funny guy, very witty. In fact, one of my favorite stories about Dad, I was probably 10 or so, and we were out on the beach in the hot sun, and I looked up at Dad and I said, "Dad, why don't you ever take your shirt off on the beach?" And he looked down at me immediately and said, "Aaron, if I took my shirt off, the divorce rate in Myrtle Beach would go up by 20%. And I didn't laugh because I was too young to really understand what that joke was. But years later, I remembered that joke and it clicked. I got it. And I went to Dad randomly and said, "Dad, do you remember that time you told me if you took your shirt off, the divorce rate in Myrtle Beach would go up by 20%? And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "I just wanted you to know I appreciate that joke. It's funny. I get it now." And he laughed and he said, "Aaron, thank you. It only took you 4 years to get it."
Brings back lots of memories.
But I miss Keith every day, and that won't change. I think about him probably every day.
You know, it's not at all been lost on me, the tremendous shoes that I have to fill and that we have to fill here in the organization. So many people here in the agency picked up the ball and started running when my dad passed away, really without a lot of input in the first weeks following his passing. He passed away unexpectedly. But the culture here is so strong, and everyone sort of knew the direction that we were trying to take things. And they all immediately picked things up and kept running in the correct direction. And that's because they all share the same priorities. And that was amazing to see. So thankfully, it's not just me carrying that legacy forward, but it's 50 plus employees across all of our locations, starting with us right here in Kingsport, all focused on carrying that legacy forward.
The future for Price Ramey is very bright. We have got a tremendous amount of synergy. We are fortunate to have a lot of people that have worked together for a long time.
I don't think that you would get better service or better caring people than there are at Price Ramey. And I am extremely proud to work at Price Ramey.
Aaron brings a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and he's going to do an absolutely fantastic job in his role of continuing what is a legacy that is second to none.
Where do I see it going? It's to bring in the next generation, right? So I want to be very involved with local schools, local colleges, and be able to bring in the next generation to show that insurance is not boring. Insurance matters. What we do is important. It's important for our clients, it's important for our community. The motivation is to continue Keith's legacy and Joe Wimberly's legacy that we're so involved in the community, but to be in other communities and do the exact same thing that they did is exciting for me. It's impactful.
We've grown and evolved over the years. In fact, we've grown and evolved with the larger insurance industry. Insurance today looks vastly different than it did in 1914. And with Price Ramey, you see the benefit of an agency that has been with the industry along for all those changes and along for all that growth. And so when we talk about our expertise, you're getting a lot of that experience and evolution. And so we're really proud of that history. And we want to carry that forward another 100 years.